Hello, everybody, and welcome to the channel where today we're talking about the 2023 NFL playoffs, breaking down each game, giving my thoughts, giving my analysis and predictions on what's been a really unpredictable season. And if you look back really at anybody's power rankings or who anybody thought was going to make the playoffs before the season, the playoff picture this year looks much different than people thought. So in my usual fashion, I'm going to be trying to predict the playoffs and what has been an unpredictable season. So I'm going to be going game by game, giving my thoughts, who I think is going to come out on top, and who I think is going to be the eventual Super Bowl champion. So we're going to start here in the NFC with the wild card weekend, starting with the Seahawks at the San Francisco 49ers. And to me, just right off the bat, I think this is a potential blowout game where I think that the Seahawks run is going to be over. I think the Seahawks lack of a front seven against a 49ers team that likes to hit the edges and run the football is going to be the Seahawks' downfall. They've really overcame a lot of adversity this season. The Seahawks, after losing Russell Wilson, Geno Smith has an incredible breakout season. There's a lot of things to be optimistic about if you're a Seahawks fan, but for this year, I just don't think it's their year. I think their lack of outside containment with Deebo Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, Brandon Ayuk with the Niners offense, I just don't think they have the talent to hang with this 49ers team. And in terms of the 49ers defense, they have just a relentless pass rush that we've already seen obliterate the Seahawks offensive line. And if the Seahawks want any chance in this game, they need to block the San Francisco 49ers pass rush, which I really honestly just don't see happening. I think that the Niners in general have the offensive weapons to exploit the Seahawks defense. So I think this one is a potential blowout. Although it is a divisional game, you always have the chance for something crazy to happen. But I just think that the 49ers are the much more talented, well-coached, consistent, and safe team to take in this game. The next matchup here is going to be the New York Giants at the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I just recently made a video about the Minnesota Vikings talking about how I don't think that they're as good as their record says that they are. But this team is still 13-4, and they have a lot of things to be optimistic about. They have a very good offense. They have offensive playmakers with Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, Dalvin Cook, TJ Hawkinson. But they are dealing with a couple of injuries, especially on the offensive line. They have their right tackle, Brian O'Neill, who's one of their best players, is out. They are starting like a third-string center. So in terms of the Vikings line, I think the Giants have a real opportunity to exploit that unit. And maybe the Giants' best piece of their team is their pass rush with Kayvon Thibodeaux, Azeez Ojulari. They have Dexter Lawrence, who's really emerged as a superstar defensive tackle. I think the Giants' pass rush is just going to obliterate the Vikings' offensive line. And if you're the Vikings, the first thing you need to do with your offense is establish the run game, open up the play-action game. I honestly just don't really see that happening here. In general, the Vikings have a very poor defense. They're, I think, 28th in points per game. And in general, I just don't think the Vikings are your normal 13-4 team. Up until last week, they had a negative 19-point differential. And if it wasn't for playing the Chicago Bears in the last week of the season, who are maybe the worst team in the league, they would probably still have a negative point differential. And as for the Giants, yeah, they may not be an amazing team. They're 9-6-1, but they have legitimate top talent at the position. They have Saquon Barkley, they have Andrew Thomas, they have Dexter Lawrence. Like, this is a legitimate playoff team, and I just don't think the Vikings are as good as their record says they is. So I'm going to go with the upset here and take the New York Giants. I think it'll be a low-scoring game. This team actually played each other earlier on in the season where the Vikings won 27-24 on a super long field goal. It was a really, really competitive game. So I'm going to go with the New York Giants, though, very slightly edging out the win and beating the Vikings. The next game here, the last wildcard game in the NFC, is going to be the Cowboys at the Buccaneers. Now, although the Cowboys are 12-5, and I'm assuming are going to be favorites despite being on the road and playing an 8-9 Buccaneers team, I'm not super confident about the Cowboys, and that's specifically because of Dak Prescott, who is the Cowboys quarterback. And if you watched him play the Commanders in Week 18, I don't see how you can walk away from that game even feeling remotely confident about the Cowboys' ability to win a playoff game. Dak has tons of interceptions this season, which some of that has been unlucky, and I get it, but he's towards the top in turnover-worthy play percentage, and he's missed significant amounts of time this year. If the Cowboys are going to win this game, Dak Prescott needs to be on point. And it's interesting to say that because the Cowboys have a very good roster. I think they're well coached, especially offensively. They have receivers, they have playmakers, and they have a pretty star-studded defense that has an ability to sack the quarterback and take the ball away. Now, on the Buccaneers side, it's Tom Brady in the playoffs, and no matter how poorly he's playing this season, though I think he's still playing well at a high level, he's not what he once was, it's still him in the postseason, and he's still going to give your team a chance. I think the Bucs have a great run defense, and they really have ever since Tom Brady has gotten there. Todd Bowles, I think, does a good job with this unit. The Cowboys, I don't think, are going to be able to run the ball as effectively as they want to, and this Bucs team can also cause turnovers. And if you're the Cowboys, the only way I think they really lose this game is if Dak turns the ball over and they're not able to run the ball. I just don't think that this is a great matchup here for the Cowboys. I think that their offense is kind of imploding. So I'm going to go with an upset here, which is the Buccaneers over the Dallas Cowboys. Tom Brady getting another playoff win despite being 8-9 and despite the Cowboys being the much better team on paper. Now heading off here into the AFC, I'm going to do the Dolphins at the Bills, which I think is another potential blowout here in favor of the Buffalo Bills. And that really starts with the Dolphins quarterback situation. As far as I know, Tua Tagovailoa is not playing in this game. We haven't heard anything from Mike McDaniel about his status. He's probably questionable, and I'm sure he wants to get out there. But in terms of his long-term health, there's a legitimate argument to just bench Tua, accept that this isn't the Dolphins season, and just kind of move on. But in the analysis of this game, it is going to be potentially Teddy Bridgewater or Skylar Thompson. And if you watched the game last week against the New York Jets, which I won't fault you if you didn't because it was a disastrous game, it was not a fun game to watch, this Dolphins offense is just not the same without Tua. They're not as nearly as explosive. And even if Tua does play, is he going to play at the level that he was playing pre all of the concussions? I'm not sure. Tyreek Hill's a little bit banged up. I think Jalen Waddle's also a little bit banged up. This team also started out 8-3 and is now 9-8. They have virtually no momentum at all, and they're playing a Bills team who's not only just the better team, but they have some serious momentum, and they've really been the best team in the league since the year started. Unless Tua plays and has some unbelievable performance, I honestly can't really see a way that the Dolphins win this game, and I think it's going to be a huge blowout in favor of the Bills, especially if Tua doesn't play. But even if he does, I think it's going to be a convincing win by Buffalo, who I just think is the far better team. Next up is the Ravens at the Bengals, which all starts with Lamar Jackson at quarterback with the Ravens. Is he going to play this game? Is he not? I'm going to lean towards yes, and I'm going to assume that he's playing. The Vegas spread is assuming that he's playing. Lamar hasn't played in about a month of the season. Some people think it's because he's holding on his contract. He just wants to save himself here, like for the playoffs. I'm not going to speculate on any of that, but assuming that he plays, I think this is going to be a really scrappy divisional game that can really go either way. But in terms of the Bengals, they, I think, exploit a lot of the Ravens' weaknesses, and even the Ravens' strengths. Honestly, the Ravens' maybe best asset is their running game offensively, but the Bengals have maybe the best or one of the best run defenses in the NFL, especially with DJ Reader at defensive tackle. And they make some incredible second half defensive adjustments that can match the Ravens offense. To me, Lamar Jackson has underperformed in the playoffs, and considering he hasn't played in a month, is he truly healthy? I don't know what to expect from this Ravens team. And in terms of the Bengals, they're riding some crazy momentum right now. They've been maybe the best team in the league over the last 2 months of the year, and they have a super high-powered offense with Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins. Joe Burrow is playing like an MVP candidate. Again, it's a divisional game. It can go either way, but I'm going to side with the Cincinnati Bengals in kind of a lower-scoring, scrappy divisional game. A couple of sacks here and there, a couple of turnovers that really turn the tide in terms of the Bengals. Next up here, sticking in the AFC, is going to be the Chargers at the Jaguars, which I think is one of the most intriguing, exciting matchups of the wildcard weekend, because you have two of some of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL with Justin Herbert and Trevor Lawrence. And I think the conversation starts there with Trevor Lawrence and with what the Jaguars have done this season. After starting out, were they like 1-6 or something like that? They have really went on an improbable run to make the playoffs. And specifically, Trevor Lawrence has really emerged as a star quarterback playing at a very high level. I do think, though, that the Chargers are the safer pick. They're the more established team. They have experience. This is a veteran team. And though Brandon Staley may get a bad rap as a head coach, I do think he's done a phenomenal job with this Chargers defense that can make those second half adjustments. And though they run kind of that nickel Fangio style defense, they're not like some of those Fangio style defenses that have gotten exposed over the last few months of the season. They still have a good defense with potential to make life as a quarterback difficult. So I do see this one being a more high scoring game, and I think it can really go either way. But I'm going to take the upset here with the Jacksonville Jaguars. I just think that the momentum that they've been riding is almost unbreakable at this point. And though Lawrence didn't play well last week and they kind of won the game in spite of him, they were playing a street free agent at quarterback with the Titans. I do think that Lawrence gets some of that moxie back and the Jaguars offense continues to roll like how it was up until week 18 of the season. Now heading back into the NFC, talking about the divisional round of the playoffs, starting with the Bucs at the 49ers. It's still Brady in the playoffs, and I know that I had them beating the Cowboys last weekend, and that may have surprised you, but I see this game being extremely close. I think Brady at this point has just seen everything, and even with that wide nine style that the 49ers run with, like some of their exotic coverages, exotic pass rushes, there's nothing that you can show Tom Brady he hasn't seen, that he isn't ready for. And I think that the Bucs defense has the defensive playmakers to stop the Niners' offensive playmakers. They have those edge rushers. They have those really fast side-to-sideline linebackers. They have a good secondary. It's just the things haven't clicked yet for the Buccaneers. They haven't clicked all season. This is an 8-9. I mean, I don't want to call it a super team, but like this team being 8-9 is honestly kind of sad. They should be way, way, way better than that based on the talent that they have. But the 49ers have a lot of talent too. And I think the 49ers, in a similar way that I spoke about the Bucs defense, that they have the defensive guys to stop the offensive playmakers, I think that the Niners defense equally so has that edge rush. They have that pass rush presence. They have Fred Warner over the middle of the field to chase down Godwin or to chase down whoever is running free over the middle of the field. Is a Purdy Magic going to be there still? I don't know. He's going to be playing his first ever, or his second ever playoff game. I don't know. I think it can really go either way, and it may surprise you that I'm even saying that because the Niners should be the better team. And I do think that the Niners are going to win a very, very close game. I think it could be like 27-24. I know that the Niners just blew out this team earlier in the season, and that could very well happen. And maybe I'm giving too much credit to the Bucs roster. I just think that this is a really good matchup, and it should be a really, really fun game that will go back and forth. But I'm going to have the Niners coming out on top. I just think that they're too talented, too well coached to not win this game. Next up in the NFC is the Giants at the Eagles. The Giants are legit, and I know I didn't make videos about the Giants earlier in the season, but I kind of said and thought early on, this team isn't exactly your normal playoff team. But the more I think about it, like they're 9-6-1. They have top players at their position. They have a quarterback that's playing pretty well right now. He's not turning the ball over in Daniel Jones. The Giants have a phenomenal pass rush. Like, this is a good team. And they're playing an Eagles team that's obviously more talented on paper. They're well coached. And I understand all that. But again, this is a scrappy divisional playoff game. The Giants have the ability to keep games close, and they've kept games close really the entire season. The Giants had a little bit of a mid-season debacle, I guess you can call it, but they've picked momentum up the last 3 games the season. But despite all that, I just think the Eagles are too good of a team, and they really have everything that you could want in a team. And what I really mean by that is when you can't run the ball, you can throw the ball with Jalen Hurts. When you can't throw the ball, you can run the ball with this great offensive line, with this great running game. You have Hurts as a runner. You have A.J. Brown. You have Devontae Smith. It just seems like whatever way that you try to stop the Eagles, they have some sort of answer. So this is not going to be a blowout. I think this is going to be, again, a scrappy game. Is a divisional game. I think it's going to be very, very close, maybe like a 21-17 type of game. A turnover here, a turnover there, a sack here, a sack there, goes the other way. But the Eagles are going to come out on top. They're just the better team. They're well coached. And honestly, the Giants have a lot of stuff going for them. They can definitely be in this position back next year. So a fun matchup there. In the AFC, the Jaguars at the Chiefs. This one should be fun. It'll be Trevor Lawrence at Patrick Mahomes, which I don't believe we've seen. Maybe they played each other earlier in the season. I can't exactly remember. But this screams high-scoring game to me. You have two very, very good offenses. You have two quarterbacks that can go toe-to-toe with each other. Mahomes has been almost unstoppable in the playoffs. I think he's been to the AFC Championship game every year that he's played. And just go look at his playoff numbers. They're even better than his regular season numbers, which you would think is impossible. So I'm going to take the Chiefs here. I don't think there's a ton of analysis. I mean, the Chiefs' interior pass rush with Chris Jones is going to give the Jaguars' offensive line some issues. The Jags have playmakers. They have Lawrence. But I think the Jaguars' defense is going to get exposed in this game. There's only so much that an offense can do. The Chiefs have Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and they have a defense that has the potential to step up when needed. So I think that the Chiefs are going to win in a little bit of convincing fashion, but I definitely can see this one being maybe a higher scoring, like 35-28 or 35-25 type of game there. The other game here is the Bengals at the Bills, which is potentially the matchup of the year. You have maybe the two best teams on paper in the NFL, roster-wise, coaching-wise. This one should be super, super, super fun. And it starts with the Bengals' explosive offense. They have really amazing playmakers with T. Higgins, Jamar Chase, Joe Mixon, Joe Burrow. They have everything that you could want here for an offense. And they have a Bills secondary that's kind of imploding here. They have a couple of safeties injured. They have Tre'Davious White coming back from injury. Is he going to look the same? He really hasn't so far, but he's definitely still a good player. Don't get me wrong. I think this one's going to be a lower-ish scoring game. They have defenses that make second-half adjustments. If there's one thing I could be worried about the Bills, it is the defense, and that maybe could give them problems against this Bengals explosive offense. But these are really two of the most talented teams in the NFL inside and out. I just think that the Bills' energy and their home field advantage right now is making them almost unstoppable. So I am going to go with the Buffalo Bills here. A lower-ish scoring game, but definitely some points going here and there. If you watch the game in Week 18, the Bills playing the New England Patriots, that's really all about you need to see. This team is riding momentum with the DeMar Hamlin thing, but it's not only that. They've been playing amazing football virtually the whole season. And in general, Josh Allen in the postseason is a phenomenal quarterback. I mean, if you go look at his numbers, even though he's 0-2 against Mahomes the last couple of seasons, he's went toe-to-toe with Mahomes. I don't think there's any reason why he can't go toe-to-toe with Joe Burrow, and eventually the Bills come up here with a win against the Cincinnati Bengals. So now we're into the NFC Championship here. We have the San Francisco 49ers at the Eagles. And the Eagles have maybe the most complete roster in the NFL. They have, again, as I mentioned, they have Jalen Hurts. They have the running game, the offensive line, the offensive playmakers. Even on the defensive side of the ball, they have the ability to create turnovers. They have an amazing pass rush. I think since week 1, at least from week 5 on, this has been the best, most complete team, well-coached team in the NFL. But on the flip side, the 49ers have the defensive linemen. They have the linebackers to combat some of this stuff that the Eagles offense does. I think this one screams a lower scoring, scrappy-ish type of game like we talked about earlier. But the 49ers playmakers are always going to cause problems for whatever defense that they're lining up against. You could say the same thing about the Eagles playmakers as well, but something has to give here. I think that the Purdy magic kind of runs out. There's also a potential that Jimmy Garoppolo comes back here. They said when he got injured, he could potentially come back for the NFC Championship. If the Niners make it this if the Niners make it to this point, do they even consider playing Garoppolo? I mean, they're getting to the NFC Championship with their third string quarterback. I don't know, but I'm going to assume that Purdy plays. He's going to be in a game that he's never experienced before. The Eagles are the more experienced team. They are definitely the safer pick. They're definitely going to be the favorite. So I'm going to take the Eagles, who I just think are the better team, has a more complete roster. And then in the AFC Championship, everybody's favorite matchup, the Buffalo Bills against the Kansas City Chiefs. We've seen this one multiple times. Mahomes versus Allen, two of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the NFL. Adjust them at whatever point that you want. It's a super, super fun game. It's always high scoring. It's always amazing to watch. Mahomes is 2-0 against Allen in the playoffs, and that's probably going to be the narrative in this game. The Chiefs have ended the Bills season 2 years in a row prematurely, but the Bills did beat the Chiefs earlier in the season, and to me, that was a sign that maybe the tide is starting to turn in the AFC. The Bills' defense, as I mentioned earlier, is a little bit shaky, specifically in their secondary, but I don't know if the Chiefs necessarily have the playmakers to exploit that weakness. Now, yes, they have Travis Kelce, but the Bills are going to do everything they can to take him away. They have Tremaine Edmonds. They could even put Tre'Davious White on him. I don't know what they're going to do here, but I think if any team is going to stop the Chiefs, it's going to be the Buffalo Bills. It's going to be Josh Allen, who's maybe the only quarterback not named Joe Burrow who's shown the ability to literally go toe-to-toe with Mahomes, to score with him, to beat him. He's really the only one, again, outside of Joe Burrow, that has consistently done this. And for that reason, considering the Bills' momentum, I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills to beat the Kansas City Chiefs and finally reach a Super Bowl, which means that the matchup I am predicting is the Buffalo Bills against the Philadelphia Eagles. The Bills are finally getting to the Super Bowl with Josh Allen. They're finally overcoming what has been a rough couple of seasons, a rough ending, I should say. Are the Bills going to be 0-5 in the Super Bowl? I hope not for their sake, but this screams incredible matchup to me. You have two teams that since week 1 have really been the two dominant forces in their conference. This, before the season, was considered the Bills' year, and I think it's going to be the Bills' year. I do think that the Bills are going to win this game. You have the Bills' energy, you have their momentum, and it really honestly feels like since day 1, this has been the Bills' year. But even that, they've overcame significant adversity, injuries especially, to not only Damar Hamlin, but they had injuries to Tre'Davious White. They had Von Miller, who's now out for the entire season. These are rough things to overcome, and yet the Bills have done it. They have stuck together. They have won consistently. They have the offense to beat the Eagles. And if you are the Eagles, there's nothing here to be ashamed of. The Eagles have a phenomenal team, maybe the best roster, most complete roster in the NFL. They have a top GM, what looks to be a top coach, what looks to be an MVP candidate. There's a lot of reasons why the Eagles could win this game and are going to be an NFC force moving into the future. I just think that this is the Bills' year. I have a feeling that they're going to come out here and win. It will probably be a very high-scoring game that can go either way. I'm not going to blame anybody for taking either side, but I'm going to take the Buffalo Bills here as my Super Bowl champion over the Eagles. So let me know if you agree or disagree down in the comment section below. You can also hit up my socials, which I'll have linked in the description. I would love to know what you think, where I went right, where I went wrong. Like and subscribe. It's the easiest way to support the channel. I would love it if you hit that like button. It definitely helps my viewership go a long way. And I will see you all in the next video.